The question is, do you agree that Scotland should be an independent country?
For me, the principle that we work best when we work together.
Well, they didn't.
Very serious.
The referendum. It seems to me that they're not dealing with the issues.
Hello, this is Scottish Independence podcast number 37, and this time I spoke to Mark MacNicol, who's a writer from Glasgow, and he has a book coming out that has more than a little to do with the Independence Referendum. He actually wanted to give the book away for free, but for the reasons he explains in the podcast, he couldn't. So we'll just go straight to the conversation, and I'll have a wee word with you at the end. Hi Mark, how's it going?
Very well, thank you.
So the first thing we should talk about is your new book that's coming out, which I believe has got more than a passing relevance to the independence debate. Could you tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, so the book is called McCool Rises. It's my second novel, and my plan is to release it in 4 sections. So the first section has been released and is currently available via Kindle. You don't need a Kindle to actually download it. You can get the Kindle software on most laptops and smartphones and whatnot. I wanted to give it away for free, but Amazon insisted on a 77 pence minimum sale price. Yeah, so you can get the first section currently, and my plan is to release the remaining 3 sections prior to the 18th of September, the day of the referendum. The themes are not unsubtle in terms of they're leaning towards the yes campaign and the yes vote. However, my hope is that as a standalone piece of fiction, that it works, that it works as a story, and that it will provide sufficient entertainment to no votes and maybe votes. So I haven't written this exclusively for yes votes. In fact, one of the main reasons that I made the decision to write it is the legend of Finn McCool. Now, it's been interesting for me since I started this journey, maybe a couple of years ago, the way in which so few people in Scotland have heard of Finn McCool.
Yeah, so could you fill us in a bit?
Yeah, so it's been a surprise to me because myself included, up until a couple of years ago, I hadn't actually heard that much about Finn McCool. He's a figure from Celtic mythology. So you're talking about, it depends, obviously, which academic you speak to, which version you get. But, you're looking at, in the region of 2,000 years ago, this guy, Finn McCool, was, a general, the head of an army called the Fianna, who were like, an elite volunteer force, who were like the military wing of the Scottish and Irish kings. And, so our Highlanders, the people that we talk about, sitting around a campfire 600-700 years ago, they were telling stories about this guy. Yeah. And it seems that, everyone in Ireland has heard of Finn McCool. You go to Ireland and, they're brought up on Finn McCool stories, and it's in their curriculum, and, everyone knows about him and his Fianna and the Ulster cycles and the famous stories, that are passed down through the generations, but not in Scotland. So it would seem that Ireland seems to have kind of taken ownership of Finn McCool, but he is definitely, he figures as prominently in Scottish, mythology as much as Irish.
So why do you think it's not mentioned to us particularly much? I certainly never heard about it in school.
You know what? I've got absolutely no idea, because me too. I hadn't actually came across Finn McCool until the first night that I met him. Do you want me to tell you the story about the first night that I came across Finn McCool?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Might have been McCool's pub. I don't know.
No, it wasn't. You couldn't make this up. I've done the West Highland Way twice, and the first time that I did the West Highland Way, I did it on my own. So, most people will have heard of it. It's a 100-mile trek from Glasgow to Fort William. I was doing it on my own, and I was crossing Rannochmoor in the Glencoe area, and the weather, as is the case often, turned quite nasty very quickly, and it started getting dark, and I was on Rannoch Moor, and it was, it was looking like I wasn't going to make it to the King's House, which was my target for camping that night. So I decided that I was going to pitch up my tent on Rannoch Moor. Now, Rannoch Moor, I don't know if you've ever been there, but I tell you what, it's a haunted landscape, and it's a very spooky place. It's an area that is, it's an area that's steeped in history and steeped in stories of, bloodshed, and is obviously was made famous by, the Glencoe massacre.
And made funny by the Corries, if you've heard the song A Scottish Holiday.
Aye, that's right, yeah. So, of course, I decided I was going to camp. I was going to pitch up tent. So I pitched up tent, tried to get some kit. Middle of the night, I got woken up by something prodding. I'm lying in my tent. There was something like, it was windy and raining outside, but there was definitely something prodding me in the side that woke me up. And I was terrified. There's no way I was getting out of the tent, because, my imagination was going mental. I was imagining that it was some otherworldly creature that was outside the tent, and I wasn't getting out. So I had one of those wee minor lamps on my head for reading. I stuck that on, and I had a book in my backpack about the area of Glencoe, and I opened it, and it just happened to open at a section about Finn McCool and his Fianna army giving the Vikings a kicking on Rannoch Moor. And that was the first time that I really came across Finn McCool. And, over the next half hour or so, I read that story, and the storm disappeared, and things went calm, and then I managed to get back to sleep. And over that half-hour period or hour period, or for however long I was being introduced to this story of Finn McCool giving the Vikings a kicking, I took comfort from him and from that story. And the storm disappeared. I went to sleep, and from that night on, you could look at it. There's a version of this story which potentially could result in me getting sectioned, which is where I say that on Rannoch Moor that night, Finn McCool took control of me or possessed me or something, because literally since that night, I've been obsessed by Finn McCool. I've been in research libraries getting as much material as I can on him and his Fianna and their way of life. So that is how I was introduced to Finn McCool, my man.
And sorry for asking this, but wasn't it possibly a deer, a stag outside the tent?
Yeah, obviously, the chances are that there was a perfectly reasonable explanation, but when you're on your own in a tent in the middle of Rannoch Moor, the storm's raging, something's prodding the side of your tent. There are some of us who'll get out the tent and face and confront whatever it is that's there. I'm not one of the guys.
I'm a rationalist, but there was one moment in my life, a Scottish moment as well, that could be something similar. It was either the first or the second tee in the park, when they used to do it near Motherwell, near Strathclyde Park, and it was brilliant weather for absolutely 2 days, apart from the half hour when the spin doctors came on, where it bucketed down, and then it stopped and it went off, and I thought that was some kind of divine comment on the spin doctors, but that's the only time I've had a similar experience. But with this character, Finn McCool, so how does he fit into the modern story of what's going on now? I believe your book's set in the modern day, so rather than a story about this kind of ancient Celtic mythology, how does this character fit into something that's happening now?
Well, the area where we start to move into yes territory is our protagonist. It's been an interesting exercise for me, because my first novel, I had a male protagonist, Coconut Badger. It was set in a fictional Glasgow housing scheme, so male protagonist, urban, gritty, realist environment, written in the third person. Now with this, this couldn't be more different, because I've got a female protagonist, and obviously because of Finn McCool, I've had to use the fantasy genre, and it's written in the first person, so it couldn't be more different. But where Finn pops up is our female protagonist is a journalist working for a fictional paper called the Glasgow Post, and she is just about to break a story about an oil discovery off the west coast of Scotland, which is comparable in size to the North Sea deposits. And is likely to result in Scotland becoming the Saudi Arabia of Northern Europe. And she's about to break this story when UK security services turn up to either take her into custody or do her some damage. So the story starts off with the UK security services coming after Fiona, our journalist, and Finn steps in as her protector, gives MI6 a bit of a kicking, and then he takes her back. So there's a bit of time travel as well. So he takes her back to his era, 2,000 years ago. Interestingly, in the book, I haven't actually called his era Scotland. He takes her back to, the ancient Celtic lands, but I haven't specifically said that it's Scotland because Scotland doesn't own Finn McCool. None of the Celtic nations own Finn McCool, and I'm conscious of Irish people who have a strong bond and affection for Finn McCool. I don't want to end up on any Irish people's hit lists or anything like that. So, so in the story, we're in modern day Glasgow, but when Finn does the time travel thing and takes Fiona back to his era, we don't specifically see it as being referenced to Scotland. It's referred to as an ancient Celtic land, and it could be any one of the ancient Celtic nations, if that makes sense. So essentially what I've done here is, I was always a huge fan of Highlander. So there's a bit of Highlander here in that you've got this, this Celtic legend turning up in contemporary Scotland, and then I've thrown in a wee bit of Game of Thrones, taking them back. Interestingly enough,
You actually had me thinking of Douglas Adams, where in the Dirk Gently book, where he's got Thor trying to go through customs without a passport, which is kind of a funny scene.
Yeah, exactly. And I've had some fun with that. So you've got this Celtic legend from 2,000 years ago. At one point, he's kicking about Bath Street, talking to doormen, trying to get into nightclubs and stuff like that. So I had a bit of fun with that.
And just to broaden it out a bit, because in the campaign so far, the Yes Scotland campaign and the SNP as well have been very, very careful to speak about civic nationalism. It's modern. This is all based on modern, rational, clear considerations from the head and not from the heart. That's very much been the mantra. Before I ask you what you think about that, put yourself in their position. Why do you think they are avoiding historical and mythological analogies as much as possible?
I'm not a politician. I'm a storyteller. I tell stories, But I would imagine, my guess would be that the reason that they're going down that road is because they're anticipating that the No campaign would have a field day with that. If the Yes campaign tried to use our history, our tradition, those types of things as leverage, I would imagine that the No campaign would try and undermine the political and economical arguments and would say that that's all we got, that's all there is type thing, and that we don't have a strong political and economical case to make, so we are tugging at people's heartstrings to try and use those historical things as leverage. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it's quite strange because it's usually the No campaign that preface everything they say with, well, I'm a patriotic Scot, but, you tend to get that coming more from the No campaign. But okay, so to change that a little bit, do you think that there is a place, maybe not from the official campaign, the official Yes Scotland, but do you think there is a place for historical and more arguments from the heart in this whole debate? Or do you think it should be kept on that rational level?
No, I think there's a place for it, because it's who we are, and I think that to make the argument, to say that we make our arguments either from our head or our heart, I don't think that has to be the case. I would like to think that I am making my arguments from both my head and my heart. So yes, I have access to the economical and political reasons why we should be independent. But I also have access, to the cultural